Hello, students, and welcome to our class today on phonetics and phonology with Carol. Thank you for your participation so far. And in today's class, we'll be looking at the topic transcription conventions. Transcription is one of the technical aspects of phonetics and phonology. And today we'll be looking at one of the things that makes this aspect difficult for students. That is the fact that we have different approaches, different scholars with different perspectives to the question of transcription. And I believe that paying attention to this class will help clear some of these confusions. Please sit back and enjoy the class. First of all, we ask, what is transcription? Transcription is the systematic representation of spoken language in written form. Okay, when you pick up a dictionary to look up a word, after the spelling of the word, most times the next thing you see is the transcription, guiding you on how it is pronounced. And this transcription does not use the regular letters of the alphabet. No, it uses symbols that have been adapted from the International Phonetic Alphabet. Although you write them the way you write normal language, you are using this International Phonetic Alphabet symbols to capture the actual pronunciation of these words. And to further distinguish it from normal spellings, when you transcribe a word or a sentence or even an entire text, you enclose it in brackets. If it is a phonetic transcription, if you watched our video on the differences between phonetics and phonology, you would have seen the differences in relation to transcription. So if it is a phonetic transcription, then you enclose those symbols in a pair of square brackets. And if it is a phonemic transcription, they are enclosed in two forward slashes, making it obvious that transcription is different from regular orthography. We have three main transcription conventions. The first is the one I choose to call the quantitative convention, which pays attention to the quantitative differences between symbols, particularly vowels. So some vowels are described in some climes as long, while others are described as short. In a quantitative convention, the focus is on using length marks to differentiate the short vowels from the long vowels. A second convention is what I call the qualitative. And here, the phonetician or the linguist uses a different symbol for all vowels. Therefore, the emphasis is on the qualitative difference, that each vowel is located at a different position on the vowel chart, and that means it is qualitatively different from every other vowel based on its height, based on its location on the horizontal level, based on its tenseness, based on the lip position. Every vowel is qualitatively different. And in a qualitative convention, every vowel is represented with a totally different symbol. The third is what I call the quantitative qualitative, which combines both the quantitative convention and the qualitative convention. And what happens here is that while the linguist still retains different symbols for different vowel sounds, he or she still includes the length marks to distinguish tense vowels from lax vowels. Now we'll look at each of these conventions in more detail. As we've said, the quantitative convention emphasizes durational differences, and it uses length marks to do this, to differentiate adjacent symbols. For instance, in the vowel chart, in the English vowel chart, in the high front vowel region, we have two vowels. These two vowels are different in the sense that one is tense and the other is lax. So the difference between those vowels, if it is a quantitative convention like the one we have illustrated here, they use the same symbols. Look at the high front vowels on our table. The same symbols differentiated only by the column, which signifies length in the tense vowel. So an example of a quantitative convention is Daniel Jones's transcription. Daniel Jones maintains the quantitative approach. And what we have illustrated here is actually derived from his quantitative transcription convention. So look at the vowel, the first vowel in feet and fit, the same symbol, only with the addition of the length marker in the tense counterpart. The same thing with the high back vowels, full and full. We have still the same symbol, but with the addition of the length symbol in the tense counterpart. Same goes for quart and cot. The length marker still in the tense vowel, and then in bird and the second syllable of rubber where we have the schwa. So the quantitative convention, in the quantitative convention, the emphasis is on length difference. And I find this worrisome because if you pay a closer look at these vowels, you will find out that the difference can't just be in the length. And we illustrate this further by looking at the vowel chart with the 12 monophthongs. And we see that every vowel has a location. The high front vowels, the first of them is located higher than the second and is positioned closer to the front vowel region than the other, which is closer to the central vowel region. And all these differences affect even their quality. I look at the back vowel region, the high back vowels, you will notice the same thing, that the high back vowel, the first of them, the tense version, is located higher in that chart than the second, which is the lax. And the second is closer to the central. And these are also impacts on their quality. Let's look at the qualitative convention, which emphasizes the qualitative differences in sounds. So because the emphasis is on qualitative differences, they also use different symbols for different sounds. There are no two vowels that have the same sound. And again, because they have recognized that these vowels are totally different from one another, there is no need for any length marker. A convention which adopts this, a linguist who adopts this convention is J.C. Wells. And if you look at the sample words we have here, you see that all the symbols here have a different, they are distinct one from another. We have a different symbol for the two high front vowels, a different symbol for the high back vowels, for the back vowels, for the central vowels. And this is what the qualitative convention is all about. We look at the very third of them, which is the quantitative qualitative convention, which, as I said, combines the two. Because it combines the two approaches, it emphasizes differences in quality and also uses a different symbol for different sounds, showing that it also emphasizes difference in quality. But then it also uses the length marks, combining quality and quantity. And a good example of a linguist who subscribes to this approach is A.C. Gimson. In the examples we have here, you will see that despite the fact that we have adopted a different symbol for each sound, we have also included the length marker in the tense versions. And this is the approach I think is best for students because it enables you to make all the necessary and possible distinctions between the pure vowels of English. Now, what is the effect of all this on students? Yes, I know. First is confusion. The symbol I have on the screen now can be a tense vowel when used by Wells. It can be a lax vowel when used by Jones. And of course, it becomes confusing because we really do not know what it is, except we specify the particular convention we are looking at. So Jones adopts the quantitative convention, Wells adopts the qualitative convention, and Gimson combines these two. When our students are not really sure of what each convention entails, the outcome is that we have inconsistencies in the actual transcription process. And this can be confusing even to the examiners. And to rescue us from this confusion, we have John Wells' 1982 concept of the standard lexical set. This set was put together to represent particular vowels using words that contain them and actually referring to these vowels using those words. To make this standard lexical set distinct, these words are capitalized so that we do not confuse them for sample examples. For instance, when you talk about the fleas vowel, we're talking about the high front tense vowel. When we talk about the kate vowel, we're talking about the high front lax vowel. When we talk about the trap vowel, we're talking about the low front lax vowel, and so on. And here I have the 12 monophones, which the standard lexical set, which represents H, the fleas, and then we have the actual symbol adopted by each of the 3 scholars we have studied today. Look at the fleas vowel. Jones and Gimson retain the quantitative convention using length marks to delimit this fleas vowel, while Wells uses the simple symbol without any length marker. And this cuts across all the fleas, the kate, the dress, the trap, the start, the cloth, the thoughts, the foot, the goose, the strut, the nurse, and the comma vowel. And let's think about it. Having seen what these conventions, or at least in relation to the monophones, which convention do you think you are more familiar with? Is it Jones, Gimson, or Wells? And which do you actually prefer? The qualitative, the quantitative, or the quantitative qualitative? Whichever way it goes, I want to tell you that no convention is better than the other. What matters is that in your transcription, you are consistent so that you do not confuse your examiner and you also don't confuse yourself. So before we end today's class, let's have a recap as usual. We today defined transcription as the graphical representation of speech using IPA symbols. We were able to identify 3 conventions: the qualitative transcription convention, the quantitative transcription convention, and of course, the quantitative qualitative transcription convention. We also were able to establish that while Jones' convention is quantitative, Wells is qualitative, and Gibson combines the qualitative and the quantitative. We also introduced us to Wells' standard lexical set, enables us to refer to individual symbols, individual vowels, using specific words that contain them to avoid the confusion that may arise from the differences in symbols. And as we said, in all, consistency is what matters. So ensure that you familiarize yourself with these conventions, adopt one that you are not conversant with, and use it consistently in your transcriptions. And that is the end of our class today. As usual, thank you for participating. Please let's have your comments in the comments section. Let's know which convention you're more familiar with, which convention you prefer, and please stay tuned for another video on phonetics and phonology with Carol. Thank you.